Well, we've agreed on the global minimum tax, and the concerns till before we agreed were on what is going to be the portion of apportionment of the profit which will be taxed, whether it is 25, 26, 27 or nearer 30. We had asked for a nearer 30 rate, and as it is, having agreed to not having, let us say, the first 10% of profit, and it is only after that, whatever profit accrues, we are asking for a share of 25 to 30%. And therefore, we thought, having conceded the first 10% without any claim on that, it is only fair to ask for something closer to 30. I think quite some negotiations happen, not so much just with us, but with very many other countries as well. If I do remember correct, South Africa, Turkey, France, and two more countries also had similar concerns. But eventually, I think all of us agreed so that there's at least one agreement, quite a long time after the world has desired, that some minimum be fixed so that the race to the bottom be stopped. So therefore, we agreed on 25. That was one of the concerns we had till before agreeing. Well, the equalization levy will now, after, if I understand correct, once the global minimum tax gets effective, well, 2023, I think. First of all parliaments will have to agree, and then ratification will have to happen. And post the ratification is when it's going to have to be implemented. And post the ratification, when it gets implemented, the equalization levy or any such which countries have levied for themselves in their own territories will all have to be withdrawn. So equalization levy is something which we brought in at a stage where we thought the world has not yet arrived at some taxation of sorts. And also for those who are present in Indian tax jurisdiction within India, there's no levy levied. It is only for those who are operating in India but who have no registered presence in India, equalization is being levied. And naturally, after all of us have agreed on a global minimum tax, that will have to be withdrawn. Well, I would think that India's position on this tax has now got the parliamentary approval. The withdrawal is not just a government activity, but it is also approved by the parliament because it has fiscal implications, and it has a position on taxation. And therefore, it was necessary for us to go to the parliament and explain ourselves. And the terms and conditions have also been fairly clearly wired into the Act itself. However, post the Act getting passed, we have also put out the regulations and rules which govern what we call a subordinate legislation, which govern the Act, which comes out of the agreed Act. To which all these parties who are party to this retrospective taxation will have to sign up. And I understand most of the talking has happened. I've been away for a whole week, but given that margin, the talks have happened. I think they should come to a logical end. We hope so, because that is also only an IPO to start with.
Right. And it'll be the biggest IPO, right?
That's right. Ever. So we are pushing to have it done. Strictly from the government's point of view, we are clear that we will stand by with the economy for the coming out of the crisis. The stimulus will continue as long as the growth path is sustainably achieved. And the hand-holding of some sectors, because one, they have to come out and they will have to, after that, flourish. And therefore, the hand-holding which has been extended will all continue. the biggest challenge I would face is having already committed to a certain expansion in public expenditure in infrastructure building, because that's a good end goal to achieve, but the process will have its own virtuous cycle which can help in generation of new jobs. So the path we have taken is very sustainably stimulus triggering, and we shall keep going on that path. However, the challenge that I face, and I think the teams which are in the ministry are also watching the way in which the fuel prices are leading to a big question. The transition from fossil fuel to renewable is not complete yet. It's not even there as much as we would want it to be. There are no alternative affordable fuel sources yet. So that process is very much just beginning to happen. We may have set targets, we may have achieved targets, but still that requires a lot more funding, looking at our own resources. The world might come up with its pool of resource for everybody to use, but we are not even waiting for that. We are moving in that trajectory. But even as we are doing all this, if the prices of crude are going up and the speculation, which is as informed speculation, if I have to believe, is that not till the end of, let's say, this financial year, which for us is March 2022, the prices are more likely to go upwards rather than come down till then. And maybe after that they can be coming down. But this uncertainty is a big element for me, which is still an imponderable, and I do not know what it will mean and how much will have to be diverted from other most important considerations. And that's the challenge I see. The ministry prepared for itself when it allotted about 35,000 crores in the budget for vaccination.
Okay.
Now, as a result of it, and also due to the very efficient way in which the institutions under the Ministry of Health, down to the level of the panchayats, which is the lowest elected rung in a democratic three-tier system, they have gone about so meticulously in getting the vaccination out there to everybody. And both awareness was being built simultaneously to remove from the minds of the people any hesitancy. As a result, we are probably somewhere at 977 million, going to touch 1 billion doses being given as vaccination by the end of sometime this week, I would think. And achieving a 1 billion vaccination dose is not a mean achievement. In fact, in the IMF and World Bank and many of the bilaterals, that is something which people have readily voiced, saying appreciation to India for having achieved this. And I'm not saying this with a tone of pride or arrogance, but we have humbly taken upon ourselves that people should be vaccinated for the economy to be coming out and for people's lives to be protected. And because we went through that belief, and you should have just seen some pictures of the paramedical workers going to some of the far-flung areas, and this is monsoon in India. They're going through flooded river, wild brooks, holding huge ropes and taking the vaccines on their shoulder to reach the villages, to give them the vaccination and come back through the same route and return to safer places. They've climbed absolutely snow-clad peaks, high levels of 14,000, 15,000 feet to reach some of the Himalayan habitations, which are not more than 25 houses, 30 houses, but yet there are small settlements. People have climbed hills to reach them. The one thing which probably helped, strictly from the point of view of economy, is in the first wave, when we didn't have a vaccination, when we didn't even produce the PPE kits that are so required, when nobody knew the animal as to what is this virus. We had come up with the decision to lock the entire economy down, strictly contain everybody back in their homes and not to come out. That obviously pushed down the economy. We went down minus 23 in our growth. GDP went down. Now, when the second wave came, because we had other strengths by which time we had built them up, your testing labs were far more, you had the vaccination come, you also knew how to trace and track people, keep them and medically handle them better. So in spite of the intensity and the speed with which the second wave set in, we only chose to go through a localized lockdown. We didn't arrest the entire activity completely. That, I think, helped purely, I'm talking about the economic, not on the medical side of things. That helped the economy to come back on its feet quickly. And of course, the pandemic itself, the second wave itself, receded as quickly as it came. Well, at the moment, the inflation in India, we have a range we have to keep inflation within. And the last few months when the range was breached, the top end was breached, there were concerns, and through various measures that we took up, like enabling reduction in the duties for importing edible oils, reduction in duties for getting more pulses in, because the acreage of crop under pulses had probably come to be affected by floods and in some region by droughts. So because those steps were taken, the breaching of the upper limit had been contained, so it's well within the limit now. So from the government side, through fiscal measures, inflation is kept well under control. And the Reserve Bank only recently, through its MPC committee meeting, has kept up its accommodative stance with no indication for anything to be changed now. So inflation is being well managed, if you ask me. Of course, there have been times when it had breached due to seasonal supply constraints, but it's now well under. No, I respect the RBI's observation, but I also think that the market also looks at the fundamentals of the economy. The macroeconomic indicators have all been absolutely strong. And markets are not played just by one or two segments of our economy. Foreign fund flows, industries raising in debt market resources, performance of companies which are listed, the way in which startups like enterprises survive and grow, declaration of so many unicorns, the such things as macroeconomic fundamentals, manufacturing PMI later, manufacturing PMI, services PMI, all of which are indicating the economy's clear signs of revival are there to be sustained. And therefore, I think that also has a play in the stock market. I think it can also be that it is indicative of the strength of the Indian economy.